The story begins with a girl named Ching Tian being forced by her stepmother to attend a job interview. The greedy woman intends to employ her as a caretaker for a very rich person and take all of the money for herself. As they enter an elevator, the stepmother forcibly applies lipstick on Ching Tian. The latter tries to object, saying that the employer is blind, so wearing lipstick is irrelevant. However, her evil stepmother is having none of it. She just wants to make sure everything goes as planned. As they leave the elevator, we learn that the rich CEO, Hao Ming, has been eavesdropping on their conversation. Meanwhile, there are several girls in the office for the job interview. Ching Tian is summoned first, and when she enters, Hao Ming begins to touch her face and body. This expectedly makes her uncomfortable, so she decides to walk away. However, Hao Ming takes her onto his lap and claims that because he can't see, he just wanted to get an idea of what she looks like. Ching Tian angrily replies that she isn't interested in the job, but when Hao Ming reveals that he heard what she said in the elevator, she becomes nervous and walks away. Later that evening, she is having an awkward dinner with her stepmother and stepsister, Xin. To break the silence, Ching Tian claims that she will not be hired for the job as the interview went very bad. However, Xin, who also turns out to be greedy, asserts that she wants to live a luxurious life, and thus, Ching Tian must secure the position anyhow. As the argument starts to escalate, Ching Tian suddenly receives a phone call. It is the rich CEO, Hao Ming. She decides to ignore it, but Xin, who has a similar voice, picks it up. Hao Ming tells her that if she wants the job, she must show up at his house within 15 minutes. Ching Tian doesn't want to go, but when her family pressures her, she agrees. A while later, she arrives at Hao Ming's house and informs him that her stepmother had signed the contract without her permission and that she still refuses to work for him. However, Hao Ming claims that the money has already been deposited into her stepmother's account. Ching Tian says she doesn't care and walks away, but Hao Ming becomes angry and orders his assistant to lock her in a storeroom. In the next scene, Ching Tian is locked in a dark storeroom where she screams and cries for help, but no one comes to her aid. Fortunately, she discovers a torchlight and begins snooping around the room. She doesn't find a way out, but does find an old photograph of Hao Ming with a woman. The next morning, the assistant arrives and takes Ching Tian out of the storeroom. Hao Ming informs her of his daily schedule and the responsibilities she must fill on a regular basis. He also mentions that she will have to live in his house and accompany him wherever he goes. A while later, Hao Ming is practicing boxing when he trips over his wheelchair and falls. Ching Tian immediately starts laughing, and hearing this, Hao Ming pins her to the ground. Soon they get into another fight where both of them call each other names. At last, when Ching Tian has had enough, she storms out of the room in anger. Moments later, the assistant approaches Ching Tian and makes an effort to comfort her. She gradually opens up and reveals that she will quit her job soon, as working for someone so rude is difficult. However, the assistant mentions that Hao Ming is actually a compassionate person who always tries to help others. He tragically lost his eyes in an accident because of his drunken ex-girlfriend. The greedy woman then broke up with him, stating that she cannot stay with a blind person. Hao Ming has remained dependent on a wheelchair ever since, despite the fact that he can walk normally. Hearing all this, Ching Tian is somewhat moved. So, from that moment onwards, she makes several attempts to encourage Hao Ming to stand up. However, every time, the rich CEO either makes an excuse or has his assistant help him out. He just won't leave his wheelchair. Later, Ching Tian hands him something and claims it's a cockroach, causing him to panic and fall to the ground. As Hao Ming reaches for his wheelchair, she snatches it away, and as a result, he is finally forced to stand up. In the meantime, Ching Tian's stepmother and stepsister are having fun spending the money she earns from her job. They visit a mall and are mocked by a few women for purchasing shoes on sale. Xin urges her mother to take more money from Ching Tian, since she only wants to wear designer shoes from now on. On the other hand, Ching Tian barges into Hao Ming's room while he is changing clothes. Embarrassed, she quickly shuts her eyes, but Hao Ming invites her to come inside and help him choose clothes. Ching Tian awkwardly obliges, and while she is picking some clothes, he suddenly grabs her and starts thanking her. He mentions that it was because of her that he was able to finally get out of his wheelchair. He also says that he has never met anyone as kind as her, so he wants her to be his girlfriend. Ching Tian is flabbergasted by his charm, and as she is about to reply yes, Hao Ming starts laughing and tells her that he was just playing. Unsurprisingly, this angers Ching Tian, prompting her to storm out of the room. Later, Hao Ming receives a wedding invitation from his ex-girlfriend, Lin. Realizing that this would be the perfect chance to get back at her, he immediately accepts and asks Ching Tian to come along. The movie then cuts to the wedding ceremony, where Lin approaches Hao Ming and starts reminiscing about their past. However, he responds to her coldly, saying that he has a girlfriend now. Hao Ming then holds Qing Tian's hand and explains that she is the best thing that ever happened to him. He also expresses gratitude for Lin for leaving him, noting that he would never have met such a lovely woman otherwise. In retaliation, Lin humiliates Qing Tian by pointing out how poorly she is dressed, and says that if Hao Ming could see her, he would not be with her. Hao Ming scolds Qing Tian for embarrassing him in front of his girlfriend. She tries to explain that she only had this dress, but he ignores her and walks away. Following the incident, a distraught Qing Tian begins crying and wandering around the streets aimlessly. In the evening, she receives a call from Hao Ming asking her why she hasn't returned, but Qing Tian informs him that she is resigning from her job. She exhales a sigh of relief as she hangs up the phone, realizing she is finally free. However, just then, she receives another call. It is from her greedy stepmother, who is on vacation abroad. The woman reveals that her card is maxed out, so she orders Qing Tian to request an advance from her boss. The latter tries to explain that she has resigned from her job, but the phone disconnects before she can finish. Having no other choice, Qing Tian returns to Hao Ming's house and pleads for her job back. She apologizes for whatever happened and asks for another chance, promising that she will not make the same mistakes in the future. However, Hao Ming just walks away. The next day, Qing Tian prepares to pack her belongings to leave, but the assistant arrives and stops her. He then leads her to a large closet full of designer outfits and shoes that Hao Ming has arranged for her. He also introduces Qing Tian to her new personal stylist, who will help her maintain a stunning appearance. Following that, Qing Tian tries on various outfits, and after a makeover, she goes to meet Hao Ming. She claims she's wearing a lovely dress and takes his hand to feel her face. When the assistant confirms this, Hao Ming becomes delighted. In the next scene, Xinxin is relaxing in a spa when she notices a picture of Hao Ming in a magazine. She is completely captivated by his looks and informs her mother that she wants to meet Qing Tian as soon as they return. A few days later, the two arrive at Ming's house to meet Qing Tian. However, upon seeing the rich CEO, Xinxin is completely mesmerized by his looks and starts daydreaming about him. They then go inside to meet Qing Tian, who is now with her stylist. Her stepmother and stepsister are taken aback when they see her large closet full of clothes and shoes. Later that evening, Qing Tian finds Hao Ming sitting alone and asks him to join her on a walk. She decides to take him to her previous school. On the way, Qing Tian reveals that she always wanted to be an artist, but she could never take classes due to financial reasons. She also admits that she used to do menial jobs like sweeping floors and cleaning bathrooms to make ends meet. A while later, they eventually arrive at the school and sneak in quietly. When two guards arrive, they quickly hide in a corner. Here, Hao Ming reveals that his only dream is to see her with his own eyes. This makes Qing Tian emotional, and the two end up kissing. The next day, Hao Ming is visited by his doctor, who explains that a matching pair of corneas has been found. If the procedure goes well, he may be able to see again. Hearing this, Hao Ming becomes ecstatic and immediately consents to the procedure. He also hugs Qing Tian, saying that he will see her soon. Later, an obsessed Xinxin is approached by her mother, who reveals information about Hao Ming's upcoming surgery. She also mentions that if everything goes well, he will regain his eyesight. As soon as Xinxin hears this, an idea strikes her mind. Since she sounds almost like her stepsister, she wants to replace Qing Tian when Hao Ming wakes up from his surgery. In the next scene, it is the day of the surgery. Before heading inside the operating room, Hao Ming tells Qing Tian that she is the first person he wants to see when he wakes up. Moments later, Qing Tian receives a phone call from Xinxin, who informs her that there has been an accident and asks her to come immediately. Qing Tian and the assistant immediately drive to the said location, but fail to find Xinxin. Then, unexpectedly, the evil stepsister arrives in a car and proceeds to strike Qing Tian, but the assistant intervenes and gets hit instead. Meanwhile, Qing Tian stumbles on the street and loses consciousness. Later, Qing Tian awakens, only to find herself tied to a bed. Her stepmother and Xinxin approach her and reveal that she won't be permitted to go out anymore. Qing Tian tries her best to leave, saying she needs to be with Hao Ming, but her stepmother says Xinxin will go in her place instead. Unfortunately, after the procedure, he hugs Xinxin, assuming she is the love of his life. The two then start living as a couple, while Qing Tian continues being locked up. One day, Hao Ming even proposes marriage to Xinxin, which she happily accepts. A week later, Qing Tian finally escapes from her bondage and runs straight to Hao Ming's office. However, the moment she sees him, she passes out due to exhaustion. When Qing Tian wakes up, she finds her stepmother by her side. The latter lies that Xinxin tried to take her own life, but she somehow survived. However, if Qing Tian approaches her, she will consider doing it again. Saying this, the evil stepmother begs Qing Tian to go away from Hao Ming's life so that her sister can live in peace. After a lot of consideration, she agrees. A few days later, Qingtian goes to a job interview and learns that the CEO is partnering with Hao Ming's company. Although she had promised not to see him again, Qingtian accepts the job because of her economic circumstances. With this, she begins seeing Hao Ming on a daily basis. Qingtian often gets emotional, but she somehow controls herself and carries on with her work. However, one day, the evil Shinshin approaches her and begins to attack her for being there. Having had enough, Qingtian retaliates by slapping her stepsister right across the face. Taking this as a perfect opportunity, Shinshin pretends to be unconscious, so Hao Ming has to take her to the hospital. Later, he scolds Qingtian for hurting his fiancée and even calls her obsessed. These words deeply hurt Qingtian, so she decides to resign from her work. Later that night, Hao Ming receives a call from his previous assistant, who has just awoken from a coma. He immediately gets to the point and explains everything about the accident. The assistant also reveals that the girl Hao Ming is dating is actually an imposter. We are then taken to the wedding day, where a lot of people have gathered. Shinshin and her mother are overjoyed that their wishes have finally come true. However, as the couple are about to exchange their vows, some officers arrive at the scene and arrest Shinshin. She screams and begs Hao Ming for help, stating that she truly loves him, but Hao Ming accuses her of being a fraud and orders the cops to take her away. In the final scene, Hao Ming recalls the path to Qingtian's school and goes in search of her. A while later, he notices her sweeping the floor and throws a ring. As Qingtian picks it up and wonders who it belongs to, Hao Ming appears in front of her. He then places the ring on her finger, and finally, the two embrace and kiss each other, making up for a happy ending.